Imagine looking out your living room window at that massive, beautiful, century-old oak tree in your front yard.
Yeah, it's a great view.
Right. But now I want you to imagine a sudden storm rolling in and turning that exact same canopy into a 10,000-pound sail.
Just catching all that wind.
Exactly. And it's anchored by a rotting, suffocated root system. So it's essentially functioning as a giant lever, just waiting to crash directly through your roof.
Which is terrifying.
It really is. So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are completely dismantling how you, the listener, look at your yard.
Yeah, we are definitely changing some perspectives today.
We have this fascinating stack of sources to go through. It's primarily a really detailed collection of arboriculture reports and landscape management guides from John Constantine at Tree Service Perfection out in West Covina, Southern California.
The data they collected is just incredible.
It is. And, looking at your backdrop today with that modern botanical study aesthetic, the brightly lit space, all those detailed arborist charts and those massive wood cross sections, it is just the perfect visual representation of the data we're about to unpack.
Well, I wanted to set the mood.
You nailed it, because our mission today is to move entirely away from the notion that landscaping is just some, weekend aesthetic chore.
Right, just mowing the lawn and pulling a few weeds.
Yeah, exactly. We are looking at the rigorous, highly scientific strategy that is required to protect your real estate from incredibly dynamic environmental threats.
Because it really is a science.
It is. And if you think ignoring these hidden ecological battles right outside your window just results in a messy lawn, this data proves otherwise. Neglect can literally lead to catastrophic structural damage to your home, and it will absolutely drain your wallet.
It's true. It requires a fundamental shift in how we perceive property lines. We tend to view the physical house as this impenetrable fortress, right?
Mm.
And the yard is just mere decoration.
Right, just window dressing.
Exactly. But the reality presented in these arboriculture reports is that your property is a single, deeply interconnected ecosystem. What happens at the microscopic level within the soil, or at the highest tip of a branch, directly impacts the structural integrity of your concrete foundation and even the load-bearing capacity of your roof.
Well, it's all connected.
Completely. When you synthesize this research from West Covina, landscape management reveals itself not as gardening, but as a highly sophisticated form of risk mitigation.
Okay, so to understand those risks, the reports suggest we actually have to start by looking up at the sky. We have to examine the climate catalyst before we even look at the ground.
That's where it all begins.
Right, because Southern California has this uniquely harsh environment that dictates the biological behavior of the entire landscape. You have prolonged, severe dry spells, baking heat, and then, just out of nowhere, heavy, violent winter rainstorms.
It's total extreme whiplash for the plants.
Total whiplash. But the primary antagonist in this region are the Santa Ana winds. The sources heavily emphasize this sail effect.
Oh, the sail effect is huge.
Yeah, so if you have an overgrown tree canopy filled with dense crossing branches and thick vegetation, it acts exactly like a massive canvas sail on a boat.
Right. It doesn't let the air through.
Right. When atmospheric pressure forces those high winds through the property, that dense canopy catches the wind rather than letting it pass through. And that puts this immense tearing stress on the trunk and the root system, turning any dead wood up there into dangerous projectiles.
What's fascinating here is the biological chain reaction that sets all of this up long before the wind events even arrive. We have to look at the mechanics of those prolonged droughts on mature trees.
Okay, yeah, let's get into that.
Because there's a common misconception that a tree's structural roots plunge hundreds of feet straight down into the earth.
That's always what I picture, like a mirror image of the tree underground.
Most people do. But in reality, the vast majority of the roots responsible for anchoring the tree and gathering water, they spread out horizontally, very near the surface of the soil.
Oh, wow, just right under the grass.
Yeah, right near the top. And because they are so shallow, they dehydrate rapidly during dry spells. So you end up with this massive, heavy structure above ground, acting as a wind catcher, anchored by a severely weakened, dehydrated root system in highly friable, crumbly soil below ground.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It really is. The
Yeah.
structural failure isn't just a possibility during high winds. The physics make it an inevitability.
So I want to focus on that dehydration aspect for a second, because the sources detail a secondary threat that I found absolutely mind-blowing.
Oh, the immune system response.
Yes. If a tree is thirsty, it's not just wilting, it actually loses its internal immune system. Let me run this analogy by you just to make sure I'm getting it.
Go for it.
So, when a human is severely dehydrated and physically stressed, our immune system plummets, right? Making us highly susceptible to viral
Sure,
infections.
we get weak.
The reports mention that a dehydrated tree actually stops producing defensive sap. And without that sap, it opens the door for fatal attacks from invasive pests, specifically these things called bark beetles.
That's exactly right.
How does that biological mechanism actually work? Like, how does sap fight bugs?
Well, the analogy holds up incredibly well when you look at the fluid dynamics inside the tree. Sap isn't just this, sticky syrup. It operates under intense hydrostatic pressure.
Okay, like a pressurized pipe.
Exactly. When an invasive bark beetle attempts to bore into the trunk of a healthy, well-hydrated tree, the tree detects the physical wound and literally flushes the insect out with a high-pressure surge of sap.
Wait, really? It just blasts it out?
It literally blasts it out and entombs it in what arborists call a pitch tube.
That is wild.
That's amazing biology.
Right.
But during drought stress, the tree must conserve water, right? So that hydrostatic pressure drops dramatically. The tree can no longer push sap to the outer bark.
So the defenses are just down?
Completely down. And bark beetles, they communicate through pheromones, and they actually sense this drop in chemical defense.
Like they smell weakness.
Basically, yeah. They swarm the vulnerable tree in massive numbers, bore into the vascular tissue to lay their eggs, and their larvae just consume the nutrient layers. They can completely girdle and kill a massive, centuries-old tree in a shockingly short window of time.
That is terrifying. Which makes proactive canopy management totally critical for survival. The reports talk about thinning out what they call water sprouts, removing crossing branches that rub together and create open wounds, and basically just extracting all the dead wood.
Yeah, that's standard maintenance.
Right. And water sprouts, as I understand it from the text, are those rapid, poorly attached shoots that just sort of explode out of the trunk when a tree is severely stressed.
Yeah, they look kind of like chaotic, bushy growth.
Exactly. And by removing that clutter, you are improving the aerodynamics. The wind physically passes through the branches rather than pushing against them, which drastically reduces the kinetic energy transferred down to those fragile roots.
You are basically surgically engineering the tree to survive extreme weather. But managing the canopy only addresses the threat from above.
Right, the sky part.
Gravity dictates that all that removed deadwood, the dropped leaves, and the decaying organic matter eventually falls. That creates a completely different, silent threat at ground level. The reports refer to this as the hidden ecosystem of neglect.
Which brings us to the threats on the ground, which are equally structural. Piles of unraked leaves, fallen branches, dense underbrush, they serve as immediate pest harborage.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a five-star hotel for bugs.
Right. Rodents, termites, and harmful insects, they just thrive in that undisturbed, decaying organic matter. And the thing is, they don't respect property lines.
Not at all.
Once a massive subterranean termite colony establishes itself in a brush pile near your fence line, they inevitably migrate outward in search of more cellulose, and that leads them straight into the wooden framing of your home.
Which is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And adding to the biological threats, we have the immediate physical danger of fire.
Especially in California.
Oh, yeah. Dead grass, fallen palm fronds, and accumulated pine needles, they function as highly combustible fuel loads. Establishing a defensible space by clearing this material is a standard requirement in fire-prone regions.
It's heavily regulated out there.
It has to be. Yet, ironically, that exact same debris becomes a completely different mechanical hazard during the region's sudden winter rainstorms.
Right, the drainage disruptions. The sources detail how excessive leaf drop aggressively clogs gutters, landscape grates, and drainage swales.
Yeah, the swales are so important.
For the listener, a drainage swale is essentially a carefully graded contour in the earth designed to divert heavy water away from your structures.
Like a shallow, natural trench.
Right. And when those channels are jammed with debris, they just act as dams.
Yeah.
The heavy winter rain has nowhere to go, causing water to pool directly against your concrete foundation.
Which is the last thing you want.
Exactly, because that creates hydrostatic pressure against the concrete, leading to severe soil erosion beneath the footings and eventual structural cracking. So you survive the drought, only to have your own unraked leaves funnel floodwaters directly into your basement.
It's so counterintuitive, but it happens all the time. That pooling water causes immense subterranean damage. Even if the water doesn't reach the foundation, a thick, undisturbed layer of unraked leaves acts like a suffocating blanket.
Just trapping everything in.
Yeah, it traps moisture against the soil surface and prevents oxygen exchange. This anaerobic environment breeds harmful fungal pathogens.
Oh, so the roots are actually getting sick.
Exactly. The fungal hyphae penetrate the root systems of healthy plants, breaking down the cellular walls and literally rotting the structural anchors of your landscape from the ground up.
Okay, let's unpack this a little bit, because the reports are highly critical of invasive ground cover, and they specifically call out ivy.
Oh, ivy's a massive problem.
Now, I have to challenge this, because I've seen professional landscapers just take hedge trimmers to ivy, shape it up nicely against a brick wall or a trellis, and it looks beautiful.
It does look nice.
It gives that classic Old English manor aesthetic that absolutely increases curb appeal. So why do these arboriculture reports classify ivy as a massive structural threat rather than just a cosmetic plant?
Well, the aesthetic appeal is undeniable, sure.
Mhm.
But structurally, aggressive climbing ivy functions as a parasitic scaffolding.
Parasitic scaffolding, that's a great term.
The danger lies in how the plant actually anchors itself. Ivy uses adventitious rootlets. These are microscopic biological anchors that secrete acidic compounds to dissolve organic material and create a holdfast.
Wait, it secretes acid.
Yes, acidic compounds. So when ivy climbs a brick wall or a stucco exterior, those acidic rootlets bore directly into the porous mortar. They hold massive amounts of moisture against the building surface, which accelerates chemical weathering and rampant wood rot.
That is crazy. It's literally eating the house.
Pretty much. Furthermore, on the ground, ivy creates a dense, impenetrable mat that fiercely outcompetes native trees for soil nutrients and water.
So just trimming the surface leaves with a hedge trimmer doesn't solve the structural problem at all.
No, trimming is a purely cosmetic illusion. To mitigate the threat, the report stressed that comprehensive ivy removal requires a surgical extraction.
You really have to get in there.
You must sever the main vascular supply lines at the base. You have to carefully detach the vines to minimize pulling down the degraded mortar they've already compromised.
Because if you just rip it off, half the wall comes with it.
Exactly. And crucially, you must extract the root systems entirely from the soil. Leaving the root systems intact guarantees immediate regrowth. Clearing that dense vegetation stops the active deterioration of your hardscape investments.
Wow. Okay, so now that you, the listener, understand the mechanics of these threats, from the aerodynamic stress on the canopy to the chemical weathering of ivy on your foundation, how do we actually fight back?
Right, what's the plan?
Yeah, how do professionals time their interventions without just constantly reacting to emergencies? The West Covina reports outline what they call an arborist's playbook.
It's a great system.
It really is. Instead of a standard calendar, they base their interventions entirely on the biological life cycle of the landscape. Starting in spring, as the sap begins to flow, the focus is on structural pruning to direct new growth patterns and maximize sunlight penetration to the understory.
Makes sense, getting ready for the growing season.
Right. Then in summer, it's about managing rapid underbrush growth and monitoring the canopy for heat stress. This is when deep dripline watering becomes critical to maintain that high sap pressure we talked about, flushing out the bark beetles.
Keeping the defenses up.
Exactly. Moving into autumn, the priority shifts to pre-storm defense, raking leaves to clear the drainage swales before the rains hit, and crucially, thinning the dense canopies before the Santa Ana wind events arrive.
You have to beat the winds.
You really do. And finally, winter, when deciduous trees enter dormancy.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the dormant phase in winter is scientifically the most optimal window for intensive interventions, particularly planned tree removals.
Really, winter is the best time for removals.
Absolutely. When a deciduing tree drops its foliage, the complex architecture of the branches is fully exposed.
Oh, because there are no leaves in the way.
Right. Arborists can easily identify structural defects, tension cracks, and points of decay that are completely hidden by leaves during the summer.
That makes perfect sense.
Additionally, cold winter temperatures typically mean the soil is firmer. This physical firmness allows heavy machinery, like bucket trucks and cranes, to access the property with minimal compaction or rutting damage to the surrounding turf and the root zones of the remaining plants.
So what does this all mean for the massive amount of waste generated? Because you execute this four-season playbook, you're extracting ivy, deadwood, and water sprouts.
Oh.
You are left with tons of raw organic material.
Mountains of it.
Right. And you can't just pile it on the curb. The sources detail a recycling loop that handles this logistical nightmare on site. Professional teams feed the heavy wood, the extracted vines, and branches into commercial wood chippers.
It's a loud process, but it works.
It does. They transform hazardous green waste into high-quality organic mulch. Then they reapply a thick layer of that exact same mulch directly over the root zones of the healthy plants.
Which is brilliant.
It creates this thermal mass effect. It regulates subterranean temperatures, keeping roots cool during the baking summer and insulating them during the winter. It traps essential soil moisture, and as the wood chips slowly decompose, they reintroduce complex nutrients back into the earth.
It creates a closed-loop biological system. You are taking a physical liability, dangerous deadwood and moisture-trapping vines, and mechanically processing it into a biological asset that fortifies the resilience of the entire remaining ecosystem.
It's honestly beautiful. But despite proactive maintenance, or, perhaps because a property was neglected for a decade before you bought it, we arrive at the worst-case scenario: structural failure.
Yeah, the nightmare scenario.
The reports outline several visual red flags indicating a tree requires immediate emergency extraction before it collapses. We are talking about sudden leaning or severe soil heaving at the base.
That soil heaving is a huge red flag.
Yeah, deep trunk cracks, peeling bark, massive sections of deadwood, and a particularly deceptive indicator: fungal growth, like mushrooms spreading directly from the trunk or the root flare.
Those visual markers are critical because they indicate internal mechanical failure. Take the soil heaving, for example.
Yeah.
A tree acts as a massive lever, and the roots are the anchors holding it against the tension of the wind. When the wind's leverage exceeds the root's tensile strength, the roots physically snap underground.
Oh, wow, just snapping in half.
Exactly. And that causes the topsoil to visibly bulge or heave upward. Once the soil heaves, the structural integrity is permanently compromised.
There's no fixing that.
None. And regarding the mushrooms, they're not just surface blemishes. Mushrooms are merely the external fruiting bodies of a massive internal fungal network, or mycelium.
Right, the real problem is inside.
That mycelium actively consumes the lignin and cellulose that give the hardwood its strength. It literally turns the interior of the trunk into a spongy, structural void.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When those warning signs are ignored and a storm overwhelms the tree, sending a 10,000-pound trunk crashing onto a residential roof, the extraction process isn't what you might expect.
Not at all.
I was watching a video of an emergency removal mentioned in the sources, and the crew didn't just climb up there and start hacking away with chainsaws. They brought in a massive, heavy-duty crane.
You have to.
Why is it necessary to strap the trunk and lift it vertically instead of just, cutting the tree into manageable pieces while it rests on the roof?
This raises an important question about kinetic energy and dynamic loads. When a massive tree falls onto a structure, the wood is under extreme tension and compression.
It's bent over the house.
Right. It is essentially a loaded spring. If an untrained individual takes a chainsaw and makes a cut while the tree is resting on the roof, the sudden release of that tension can cause the heavy trunk to snap back or twist violently.
Like a giant rubber band snapping.
Exactly. The sudden shift in a multi-ton weight can instantly cause a secondary collapse, driving the tree through the remaining trusses and directly into the living space.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
It's incredibly dangerous. By using a crane, professionals secure the load from above, neutralizing the kinetic energy and supporting the immense weight before a single cut is made.
The sources also dig into the legal and financial aftermath of a tree striking a house. It becomes very clear why you should never treat this as a DIY weekend project just to save an insurance deductible.
Please do not try this yourself.
No. The requirements to satisfy a homeowner's insurance claim are incredibly strict. Fast professional extraction and immediate emergency roof tarping are mandatory to mitigate further property loss, like heavy rain pouring through the shattered roof decking and destroying the interior drywall and electrical systems.
Because if you don't tarp it, the damage just multiplies.
Exactly. And if you attempt the removal yourself and cause a secondary collapse, or you just fail to tarp the roof quickly enough, the insurance company can completely void your coverage, leaving you financially responsible for the entire reconstruction.
Engaging licensed professionals ensures compliance with local emergency permits. It guarantees the complex physics of the rigging are handled safely. And most importantly, it provides the legal documentation required to protect your financial assets during a catastrophic claim.
Well, we have covered an incredible amount of ground today. We started by looking at the harsh Southern California climate, understanding how a dense, unmanaged canopy transforms into a massive sail, transferring violent wind energy directly into a dehydrated root system.
It really is a domino effect.
It is. We explored the microscopic warfare happening in the soil, from bark beetles exploiting a lack of hydrostatic sap pressure to aggressive ivy using acidic rootlets to literally dissolve masonry.
Dissolving the mortar right off the bricks.
We unpacked the biological timing of the arborist's playbook, the thermal mass benefits of on-site mulching, and the complex tension dynamics of crane-assisted emergency extractions. The ultimate takeaway from John Constantine's data is that property maintenance is not about aesthetics. It is a highly strategic biological defense system for your real estate.
It really requires us to completely reevaluate how we protect our homes. We invest massive amounts of capital into indoor technology, security cameras, and climate control to create modern smart homes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But when you consider how intimately connected the health of a single subterranean root is to the structural integrity of a concrete footing, or how the aerodynamics of a canopy dictate wind resistance during a severe storm, it reframes our priorities.
It really makes you think.
Perhaps the true smart home of the future isn't defined solely by the electronics wired inside the walls. Perhaps it is defined by engineering a hyper-resilient, climate-adaptive ecosystem on the outside.
The biological smart home. I love that perspective. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. I highly encourage you, the listener, to step outside today. Look up at your canopy, look down at your soil, examine the base of your trunks, and see your yard in a completely new light. Until next time.